Today we're going to paint a little 15-minute landscape, and of course I'm going to do voiceover because when I recorded it as I painted, I failed to capture the audio. So here we go. So to get started, I'm just spraying with a little bit of water just to dampen the paper, and I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit heavier at the bottom where I know I want a lot of bleeds. And here I'm just laying in where I know I want those palm trees. And I'm working with a very limited palette, so I'm not trying to be realistic to the reference photo that you see below. I'm really just trying to capture the feel of a tropical environment. So I start with laying in the green gold, which will capture some of the light that's going to be caught within the foliage. And then while it's wet, I'm going to add in a little bit of that chromium green just to get those nice watercolor blends. I'm not really worried about shapes because I know I can always do another layer if time permits. But again, just trying to get the composition set and putting things in quickly. If you note, I'm using a large brush, a number 12 round brush, and that keeps me from worrying about too many of the details. Again, just trying to get that composition in there so that I don't forget any of the main elements. I think the thing I love the most about watercolor, which probably most watercolor artists mention, is the lovely blends you get. And, you know, that's kind of like nature too. When you squint and look at the environment you're in, you don't see all the details, you just see sort of the beautiful colors and the blends. I'll do the same thing with the flowers. I'll put some, or I am putting some coral down, and then I'll go in with a darker red and try to get a little variation in that because that's how it would be in nature. And also that's what I see in the reference photo. My paper is pretty small at 10 by 7, so I really don't have a lot of room to add detail, which is good. It's keeping me honest for my 15-minute practice photo or painting. I like that there's color on both sides just to show kind of a balanced composition. Typically, whatever I do to one side, I'll try to do to the other, or I'll add things in odd numbers. You probably heard that before. So just quickly laying in some of the shadow area where the trees are going to be reflected onto the ground, and trying to darken up some of the trunks. I'm using Sepia here. It's a nice neutral. It doesn't have, yes, it's brown, but it does just carry that value that I'm looking for. And also on my palette, I'm using Moonglow, so I'm introducing it here. Again, I'm working with a very limited palette. I don't have any blues. Moonglow does granulate and does show some blue, but I'm going to use it kind of in place of my blue for the sky and sort of that atmospheric transition. And also to cool off my shadows, which is what I'm doing here. There's the limited palette. I usually do a practice on a swatch just so that I can see how things are going to blend together to make sure that they look harmonious. So now I feel like I have the main shapes in, so I'm moving to a smaller brush. And when I begin to capture these palms, I try to remember not to try to paint every single palm frond. I'm really just trying to show there's a mass and a tangled kind of web of this tropical landscape. So there's things hanging and interfering with each other. So these are some of the loose branches that I could see in the reference photo. So now I need to capture the plants that are on the ground, and they're much more of a mass. So I'm going to put in that warmer olive green, and then I can have it blend with the other greens on the palette. But the heaviness of it should ground it to the ground, ground it to the ground. I do like adding splatter when you're doing these quick paintings because it does kind of take the pressure off. It's like, whoa, you're getting some color out there without having to be too fussy. I probably could have used my bigger brush here, but because, again, my paper is so small, especially being mashed off, it's even smaller than the 10x7, that I think it's working just fine. And I can really use the belly of this brush to get down in there, to spread more paint. Sorry, my hand was getting in the way. That is one issue of having your camera above. You need to be a little more cognizant of that as you paint. I noticed here I lost my tree trunk, so I was adding one back in just to keep those, I like things in those odd numbers, as I mentioned. So I have that third trunk in there. And then I'm laying in the big areas of the palm, again, so that I'm not compelled to paint every single little stroke that I know is a part of a palm tree. But what does my eye see? It sees more of a mass of green with these little spiky things coming off. So that's how I'm capturing the palms here. And I'm trying to change the greens as I go so that, again, I get a nice blend and variation in those. I've already identified where that green gold was, where the light is. So now what I'm trying to do is add some darker ones with just touches of those highlights. So I'll do the same thing for this other palm. Again, just get some color down and then you can spread it with your smaller brush. As you can see there, that was pretty successful. It moved that large amount of green around pretty nicely. You can also reach into your wet on wet and utilize the colors that are still damp on your page to get some of those nice watercolor blends that we all love. As I move through past the halfway point, I'm really just trying to get the rest of the colors and the shapes down so that I can concentrate on value to say, where do I need the darker darks? Where do I still need some light? So I'm trying to quickly move through some of that hedgy kind of landscape, or what am I trying to say? The hedge that's in there. The brush. Here I'm just lifting off a little bit of that trunk so that it looks like it has a little more dimension than just being flat. If I have time at the end, I can go back in and really make that a feature. But with a 15-minute landscape, you really don't have a whole lot of time. I'm starting to feel the pressure because I haven't really spent a lot of time on the left-hand side. So here I'm trying to quickly get some color in. I have fun doing the palm fronds, so I could probably spend more time doing those where I know, oh, I have to get these other things in. So trying to move quickly and gesturally. And how I'm using the reference photo right now is I'm looking to see where do I see a mass of foliage versus what do I have on my paper. So I do like that there's a lot of light in the middle because that's what I see from the reference. And so now I'm just trying to blend in some greens. And as the paper dries more and more, they'll blend even more than don't need to require the brush is what I'm trying to say. The watercolor will do the work for me. And what I'm pointing out here is I have a lot of these darker. I've added the Moonglow to the right, so I'm trying to do it to the left. And since I don't have blue, what I'm doing now is using that cooler Moonglow to suggest the sky and that my painting is a little more dimensional than two dimensions. And I really don't mind it's blending a little bit in with the green, but I think, again, our eye fills in things in nature. So I don't mind that I'm doing it here with paint. And then I got a little bit of green in there. That was a little too much. So I'm just lifting it off and spreading it around. That is one nice thing about watercolors. You can usually make your corrections. I'm still quite damp down here because I had brushed the bottom. So I'm not really able to get a lot of details that were in the reference photo. So I'm just trying to imply that this is it's not really a forest, but the forest floor. And here I just went to the very edge just for a hint of green. I do like if I'm masking something that I capture some colors on the edge to make it kind of, that was the reason why I masked and it kind of grounds the painting. So here I feel like I just need a little more of the contrast. So the red wasn't doing it enough. I was getting a lot of spread, so I'm just adding a little bit of Moonglow since that's sort of my shadow color within this composition. You can see I'm kind of searching with my brush. My eyes are kind of following it. What else do I need? And I felt like here I needed to define that horizon line a little better. It was looking a little wonky. And so I just kind of went over with horizontal. And then I'm trying to add some more darks where they meet the ground because that's typically what you see in nature. I hope you had fun if you painted along today. I know I did. Thanks for joining me.